Hey there, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, we're talking Kentucky Derby preps, we're talking Kentucky Oaks preps, and we're going to New Orleans to do it.
Absolutely, Brian. It's a big day in the Big Easy. And like you said, Brian, they got a lot of graded stakes races, but we're going to focus on the 3-year-olds.
Focusing on the 3-year-olds, we got the Lecomte and the Silverbulletday full analysis, top picks right now on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the special pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. We're back on the Derby Trail, back on the Oaks Trail down in New Orleans.
Yeah, Fairgrounds has a nice card on Saturday, Matt. Several stakes, graded stakes, good horses running, but we're going to focus on the 3-year-olds because, Matt, I think these are two legitimate preps, one for the Kentucky Derby, one for the Kentucky Oaks. Nice fields. Let's start with the boys, if you will, Matt. Let's start at the top. I think the horse that we all expect to go favorite comes from the powerhouse barn of Brad Cox. I'm talking about Mandaloun, Matt. A son of Into Mischief has looked good so far in his brief career.
Has absolutely looked good. It's the Brad Cox broken record we're playing here a little bit. Mandaloun, of course, Brian, could only be by one sire at this point, Into Mischief. And this is a Juddmonte homebred. And like you said, he has done very little wrong with an impressive maiden special weight win at Keeneland, and then a big allowance victory also.
Yeah, he's won at Keeneland and he's won at Churchill Downs, both obviously as a 2-year-old. Now he'll make his first start as a 3-year-old, his first start in stakes racing, his first start around 2 turns, Matt. But the hot trainer, Brad Cox, says 2 turns is what this horse wants. He's out of an Empire Maker mare, which should only help his chances to get 2 turns. Breaking from the 10 hole, there are a lot of new questions for Mandaloun to answer. And if you want to try to beat the favorite, maybe there are enough questions for you to say, hey, he's worth taking a shot against. But on the other hand, he looks like a horse who is a legitimate stakes horse. He'll try to prove it here as the favorite in the Lecomte. Let's go all the way down to the rail, Matt. I think the second choice on the morning line is Midnight Bourbon. And Midnight Bourbon from the Steve Asmussen barn is the one horse in the field who has some real graded stakes experience, some good, some okay. The son of Tisnow has not been seen since third last in the Champagne.
Yeah, but he does have the experience over a lot of the horses in this field. And hey, these days it doesn't take many races to say you've got the most experience in the field, and it does make handicapping these Derby Trail races, particularly in January, challenging because there is so little to go on. 1 race, 2 races, and they're coming from so many different tracks. But as you said, Midnight Bourbon was third in the Champagne behind his stablemate Jackie's Warrior, which is a grade 1, and then he was second. Had the lead coming down the stretch of that race, but finished second to that Dale Romans runner in the Iroquois at Churchill Downs from the barn of Steve Asmussen. Both of those performances are probably good enough in this field, but the long layoff, but the layoff from October does concern me a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know if I agree with those performances are good enough. I like the Iroquois. The Iroquois came first of the 2, the grade 3 Iroquois, and he did make a nice move there to take over the lead, but really offered not too much resistance as Sitting on Go just powered by in the stretch. Decent second in the Iroquois. Then he went to Belmont, and that third in the Champagne, I know it's Jackie's Warrior and reinvestment risk, but he was really nowhere in the neighborhood of either of those top 2 horses in the Champagne. So it's kind of a litmus marker here for me in the Lecomte. If some of these lightly raced horses that look good are good, I think they beat the performances that Midnight Bourbon has turned in so far. Maybe if a lot of these promising horses kind of don't live up to their promise, then Midnight Bourbon becomes more of a threat in here for me. But I'm not I'm not super high on him off those races, and especially if he's the second choice as he is on the morning line. Hey, Matt, when I was up at Arlington for many years, one of the big trainers up there was Mike Stidham, a nice guy, a good trainer. It's nice to see him getting more and more good horses of late. He's got two very interesting horses in here. Let's start with Proxy, who's a well-bred son of Tappet, Matt. He's got experience over the fairgrounds main track.
Yes, Brian, he's got a maiden special weight win and followed that with an allowance win at fairgrounds. And you talked about having some quality horses. This is a Godolphin homebred, and Proxy is out of a Grade 1 winning mare of close to $1 million. So you got pedigree, you've got performance with Proxy.
Yeah, you have performance. You certainly have pedigree. The bloodlines are there, as you say. I'm not blown away by either of those wins at fairgrounds, the maiden win or the allowance win. But on the other hand, he did what he had to do. I kind of like the fact, though, that he's shown some versatility already in his career, having rallied early on and then setting the pace more at the fairgrounds. The experience over the track helps. And I think he looks like a horse who's going to get better with racing, Matt. And for those reasons, I think he's one of the horses you really have to think is a likely candidate to hit the board here on Saturday from Mike Stidham. Another horse who might be a likely candidate to hit the board, I'm not as crazy in the win spot, is Arabian Prince. This is a son of Mashawish, young sire Mashawish, a talented new stallion. Trained by Dallas Stewart, Matt. He doesn't have a lot of early speed, though.
Yeah, Dallas Stewart for West Point Thoroughbreds had a third place finish in the Kentucky Jockey Club Grade 2 earlier in his career, last year as a 2-year-old. Yeah, and I think I kind of feel like you do, Brian, on this one, that I'd have to see more from him.
Yeah, there is some pace in here. It's an 11-horse field, and fairgrounds is a track that usually lends itself to horses who can rally. Not always, but it's one of those tracks that usually plays pretty fair. I would expect him to come running and passing horses, whether that means for fourth or fifth or better remains to be seen. But I see enough in his 2-year-old form there to think that he's a good bet maybe to play underneath in the exotics. Let's get back to trainer Mike Stidham, Matt. Manor House, I really liked what I saw from Manor House in his maiden race. The son of Upstart debuted at Laurel, Matt. But I will say this about Manor House. He's cross-entered in an allowance race. This would only be his second start of the year, so we still don't know if he's going to run for sure in the Lecomte. But if he runs, he's an interesting candidate.
Yeah, you've got to take a second look, and we've got the replay of that 12-length victory at Laurel by Manor House. As you said, he's cross-entered in an allowance, race 8 earlier in the card, son of Upstart, and who knows? He could be a really good one, or that race could have been, a big performance against the field at Laurel. We'll find out more on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think often the Maryland form is underrated. So I kind of like what I saw from Manor House. Obviously, I almost wonder though if Stidham and Connections are not committing, if they'd like to give him one more race through his conditions before they go into graded stake starts. But again, I think he is a talented horse, this son of Upstart, who won by more than a dozen lengths in that 1 mile. Debut at Laurel Park. So Manor House, whether he's in the field or not, a horse to watch. We'll see if he's in the field. Next up on my list, Matt, here is the number 7. And I think he's a very interesting horse who should have some decent odds. His name is Santa Cruiser. He's a son of Dialed In for Keith Desormeaux, who's done some good things on the Triple Crown Trail the last several years or so. And I like Santa Cruiser's progression that he's made at Churchill Downs, Matt.
Yeah, and this is a Calumet homebred by Dialed In. It took him 3 tries, and that's I think the progression that you're talking about, Brian. It took him three tries to break his maiden, and he did that at Churchill Downs in November. These are the kind of horses that you might say, oh, it was just in November, but these are the kind of horses that a couple months, November to January, they can change an awful lot.
Yeah, and Desormeaux is usually one who has his horses developing over races and time. I really did like Santa Cruiser, what he did last year. If you look at the horses that are in his past performances, I think that says quite a lot too. He was third in his debut. That was won by Essential Quality, who's soon to be the 2-year-old champion. He was second in his second race, and that was won by Swill, who's run decent races and stakes races since. And then last time, when he broke his maiden at Churchill Downs in nice time as he progressed in distance and maturity, he beat Regular Guy, who came back and won his next start and is, in fact, in this race. I think Santa Cruiser has some odds in here, and he's a horse I need to play off of those 3 races. He's already faced good horses, even though it's been in maiden races. Next on our list, Matt, is another one cross-entered in the 8th race, that allowance race. Beep Beep, like Manor House, has only had 1 start, but Norm Cassie might have something good in the Son of Tapizar.
Yeah, he might, and I'm sure the track announcer will have fun with the name of that horse, and we'll see about what race he goes in. A Son of Tapizar, bred by the late Mary Lou Whitney, so there's some good quality pedigree in this horse. It was a 7 furlong victory in the maiden special weight, and I like horses coming out of those 7 furlong maiden wins.
Yeah, and he jumps up to 1.16 now, as several in the field will have to do. Of the 2, I guess I prefer Manor House. He's been a mile, and I might see a little bit more potential there, but Beep Beep certainly could be good for trainer Norm Cassie. So if he goes in this instead of that allowance race, another horse to consider, another horse who probably would be a player in the early pace of the Lecomte. All right, Matt, we're rounding down this list. I already mentioned Regular Guy. He breaks from the 5-hole. The son of Bernardini is trained by the Catman, Wayne Catalano. He has also progressed. He was second 2 starts back, which was an improvement to Santa Cruiser. But last time he came back with a win over the track at Fairgrounds.
Yeah, it's another one that you mentioned is progressing. It took him 4 tries to get his victory, and this one is a Son of Bernardini.
Yeah, Regular Guy. I said I like Santa Cruiser quite a bit at the odds in here. Regular Guy, not quite as high on him, although he's obviously headed in the right direction. It really did look like that start 2 starts ago that Santa Cruiser was just better. And his maiden win was nothing to write home about, but it was a win over the track. Again, progressing for Catalano, and maybe a long shot who could hit the board. Matt, we also have some horses coming from Oklahoma, one of your favorite tracks to watch as they come into these bigger tracks. And the first one we'll talk about is Game Day Play, who's already a stakes winner, the Son of Violence.
Yeah, and I think that's noteworthy for a horse trained by Brett Calhoun out of Violence. Was the winner of the Clever Trevor, which was a prep race at Remington Park for the Springboard Mile. I guess they decided to give this guy a little bit more time after that victory in Clever Trevor to come and try the Lecomte at Fairgrounds. Interestingly, Game Day Play is one of, I think, 5 horses who are opting to run with Lasix in this race, which means that they will not be eligible for the Kentucky Derby points.
Yeah, it's not a big Kentucky Derby point race, but losing out a chance at some Kentucky Derby points is something to think about. You liked him more in the Springboard Mile than I did, and I feel like this is only tougher than that. He was scratched out of that race, won by Senor Buscador. I'm not big on the horses from Oklahoma just yet, and Game Day Play would fall into that for me. I'm going to take a stand against him. The number 11, Matt, is Dynamite. My old friend Jimmy Walker inspired the name of Dynamite. A son of Golden Sense, another one from the barn of Lecomte Desormeaux. He's run against some good horses. He's been pretty consistent in California, but when he did run in the grade ones, he kind of faded out of contention a little bit.
Yeah, and as you said, another Desormeaux trainer. This one was out west, won a maiden special weight on the turf, which is interesting. And a lot of trainers are doing that, giving some early races on the grass, and then won an allowance at fairgrounds.
If there's a bomb that sticks around, Dynamite would be the one. I think he's got a little pace. He's certainly well experienced at a distance at ground, which most of the horses in the race can't say. I don't think he's going to win, but every once in a while you see that horse who gets out there and sticks around for third at 70-1. Dynamite might fill that bill here in the Lecomte. The last horse is another one from Oklahoma, Matt, Red and Wild, a son of Bayern, who is coming off a third in the Springboard Mile.
Yeah, and this one's got a third in the Springboard Mile, a second in the Clever Trevor behind Game Day Play, a win in an allowance race, so a lot of experience.
A lot of experience, but I just worry about the class against these horses, so I'm not on the Red and Wild bandwagon. Matt, I already mentioned kind of who I like in here. The two I like best are Mandaloon, who I think is the favorite, but Santa Cruiser is going to be my play. I think he could drift up towards 10-1. Love the progression. I like the horses he's run against. I think he's got a real shot in here.
Yeah, Brian. Hey, you made a great case for a horse that's going to come with some good odds. I think that Mandaloon is could very well be tough to beat, coming from the barn of Brad Cox, who is turned into an irresistible force. I also like Proxy. You mentioned Michael Stidham. And I like the breeding of this. I like the allowance win at fairgrounds. So Proxy is kind of my second choice, and my long shot, I think Brian alluded to it earlier, is Game Day Play.
All right, Matt's throwing Game Day Play in there. Yeah, Proxy would be a horse that I need to throw in there as well for exotics. He's probably third on my list. I like the Stidham horses. Arabian Prince might rally up for third or fourth. I don't know if both Stidham horses run, so Proxy's the more likely to run, and Proxy looks like a horse who could very well hit the board. All right, that's our preview of the Lecomte Kentucky Derby prep race. Let's look at the Kentucky Oaks prep race the same day. In fact, it's just one race before, Matt. It's a little shorter, a mile, 70 yards, the $150,000 Silver Bullet Day, named after a terrific filly from Bob Baffert of years ago. Matt, I think we need to start with the 9 Sun Path, trained by that guy again, Brad Cox, the daughter of Munnings.
Yeah, we're talking Brad Cox again. Munnings. This one is another Juddmonte homebred, not an Into Mischief. We got Munnings, but that's another hot sire also. And Sun Path has been nothing but impressive. His last race was a nice allowance win at Fairgrounds, where she won by 12 lengths and going around 2 turns. And I like what I've seen from this one. In her maiden special weight victory, she had a nice burst of speed around the turn to get into contention. It looked like she was doing things on her own. I think there's big upside from this Brad Cox trainee.
Yeah, and Matt and I aren't going to be saying too much here about Sun Path that hasn't been already said out there, or at least hasn't been buzzed about already. She is truly one of the buzz fillies on the Kentucky Oaks list, and with good reason. Talk about progression, 3 race progression. She's gotten better each start. Her maiden debut was nice, and then she won nicely at Churchill. Matt said a big move on the backstretch, which was impressive to see visually, and then she wore them down easily before she absolutely rolled them here at Fairgrounds, or there at Fairgrounds, where this race will be. So Sun Path, I have a feeling he's going to be a pretty big favorite in here, probably deservingly so, as talented as she looks for Juddmonte, for Cox. Daughter of Munnings looks like a real deal possibility. But I do like the one, Matt. I do like the one quite a bit. Her name is Super Sensational. I actually talked to the assistant trainer, David Carroll, for trainer Mark Casse recently, and he said he likes her a lot too, although they're not sure about the distance, which surprised me a little bit, being a daughter of Curlin. But Super Sensational was pretty close to sensational in her first two starts up in Canada at Woodbine.
Yeah, Brian, and this is a horse that Live Oak paid $725,000 for. 2 for 2 up at Woodbine, including a victory in the Glorious Song Stakes race. Hasn't done anything wrong, and you know, folks, you might be saying, well, what the heck are they doing running this horse up at Woodbine on the artificial surface? Well, you know, Mark Casse's always been a force up there at Woodbine, and the purses are awfully good.
Purses are good, and Curlins can run on anything, and that makes me think Super Sensational will be just fine on dirt. I like her workout since she's gotten down to New Orleans over the Fairgrounds racetrack. I kind of like the rail draw. She showed plenty of speed up at Woodbine. I don't know if she'll end up being a true speed horse per se. I think she just overmatched her competition watching those races at Woodbine, and I think she's got a lot of talent, much like I said about Sunpath. I think there will be a disparity in the odds, though. I think Sunpath will be closer to even money, and Super Sensational, you might get some decent odds, 3-1 or more in here. She's on the rail, and she showed the speed that I think she could be tough to run down, even if Sunpath is as good as she may look. Another from the barn of trainer Brad Cox, Matt. Another daughter of Into Mischief. This is Divine Comedy, and I think she might not be the third choice on the morning line, but I think Divine Comedy is clearly the most dangerous to the top two.
Yeah, and here we go with the Brad Cox Into Mischief combo. This one is a Godolphin as opposed to a Juddmonte runner, and lots of quality showing on the racetrack. Also, won her maiden special weight at Fairgrounds, so we got that race over the track by 5 lengths while racing on the front end, going 2 turns. So who knows how good this one is?
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think this well-bred Godolphin homebred is going to be a nice filly, but she does probably, and you saw it in her debut performance where she wasn't quite ready for primetime. She probably wasn't just as forward as Sunpath or Super Sensational yet. So I think that probably hurts her chances to beat the top two, or at least both of the top two here. But Divine Comedy, I think, will develop into another nice horse for trainer Brad Cox. One that could be the third choice, Matt, is from the barn of your old friend Tom Amos. The daughter of Ghost Zapper. Her name is Little Stitches, and she's looked good in her last 2, at least.
Yeah, a nice maiden special weight at Keeneland, and then Tom Amos, who will take his horses to any racetrack looking for the right spots, took this filly to Delta Downs, where she won a 7-furlong stakes race. So Amos will have this daughter of Ghost Zapper stretching out a little bit, but hey, he's a crafty trainer, Tom Amos, and I do like the fact that maiden special weight win came at Keeneland. This is an interesting filly to me at a horse that certainly won't be better than third choice.
No, the top two are pretty much set in stone as far as the odds go. So you'll get odds on everybody else, including Divine Comedy and Little Stitches, the 2 horses probably vying for third choice in here. Hey, hard to know what that big win in the My Trusty Cat at Delta Downs means in the grand scheme of things against very, very good fillies. But on the other hand, she's been consistently getting better. She has a lot of speed. Daughter of Ghost Zapper, Amos likes to run his horses, and this one looks like another one who's going to be a good speed horse to watch out for in here. She's not one of my top picks, but I do respect her. My top long shot, Matt, is the 4 horse in this 9 horse field. Her name is Minute Walls. She's a daughter of Nyquist. She's only started two times up in Churchill, but I like what I saw. She won her debut very nicely, and last time she stretched out to a mile. She made a move, and she faded just a little bit at the end. Couldn't sustain that move, but I think with that experience, she might be ready to take a step forward in her third start.
Yeah, for trainer Phil Bauer, this is a daughter of Nyquist, and hey, these Nyquists are doing good things on the racetrack. The for that Kentucky Derby winner, again, that third in the allowance at Churchill Downs is just an indication that this could be a horse that's got a whole lot of potential.
Right. And if she does move forward at odds of, who knows, 12, 15 to 1, she might get in there at a price. Well, we're talking about Nyquist fillies. Let's go to the other Nyquist filly, Matt, and that's Princess Theorem. Princess Theorem had a nice win in her second start before trying the graded stakes company in the Goldenrod, which was a pretty tough addition to the Goldenrod. She didn't do a whole lot in there. Will she do better this time around?
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, but if she does for trainer Brandon Walsh, it'll be a neat thing because this was only a $10,000 purchase for this filly.
Yeah, and that goes to show you that maybe the Nyquists are quickly outrunning their expectations here in his first crop. Yeah, it would be a tough jump up, though, from that performance in the Goldenrod to win this here. Jim Baker. Jim Baker's got a Medaglia d'Oro filly in here, Matt, who's won 2 in a row. Her name is Barista. Maybe not the most impressive 2 wins in the world, but she's well-bred, and she could be getting better as well.
Yeah, well-bred for sure. Got an allowance win at Fairgrounds. We should note that that was on a sloppy track in a race that was intended for the turf. I don't know if Baker was looking for a race that might come off the turf to get an allowance start, or if they really wanted to go on the grass, but not one that I'm going to use.
Yeah. And the next one probably isn't for me either. Her name is Charlie's Penny. She's only sprinted the Daughter of Race Day so far. She's a Minnesota bred, Matt, and her sprint races have not been bad, but I don't know if they're good enough for me to get excited about her chances here in the 1.70-yard Silverbulletday.
Yeah, trainer Chris Block. Has some experience to go with those sprint races. An allowance win at Churchill, was 4th in that Glorious Song behind Super Sensational. But as you said, Brian, probably not one that I'm going to use.
Nor will the other Brandon Walsh be, Matt. That's a daughter of Malibu Moon. Her name is Moonswag. She began her career at Albuquerque Downs, of all places, although she left Albuquerque for her first start last time for trainer Brandon Walsh. She'd be a surprise to me, let's say, Matt.
Yeah, daughter of Malibu Moon, finished 4th in a listed stakes race at Fairgrounds, actually just behind Charlie's Penny, who we just talked about.
Yeah, 2 long shots in there for me. All right, well, in this race, I think it is less wide open than I thought the Lecomte was. In the Lecomte, I thought there were a number of horses who could run good races in here. And there are a bunch of interesting fillies, but the top 2 for me kind of stand out, Matt, just because I really do think these are 2 of the most potentially really good 3-year-old fillies in the country. And for that reason, I'm on the favorites, though. I will reverse the order because I'm going to pick a little bit of an upset. I think Super Sensational won't get bet as much as Sunpath for sure, but I think she's got a real shot. I'm pretty high on this daughter of Curlin, but Sunpath could be a monster.
Yeah, could be, Brian, and I understand trying to get the better price. Sunpath, though, that experience around 2 turns at Fairgrounds, is important to me. I think this is a good one. The other horse that I am interested in playing around with is that Tom Amoss Little Stitious.
Little Stitious, and my long shot, remember that I'm going to throw in a little bit with those underneath the favorites, is Minute Waltz from trainer Phil Bauer. All right, that's our Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks, and I really think these are legitimate Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks preps, Matt. We gave you our full field analysis, top picks. Before we go, though, Matt, I was hoping to get a parting shot from you, my friend out there in New Jersey.
Yeah, hey, here we are, January, and racing is on its regular schedule this year. So, I feel like we're starting the racing season at least on a good track in 2021. Hopefully things will continue that way. And of course, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Yeah, great point, Matt. Thanks to Brett, of course, but also, yeah, it's nice that we have racing. We got to stay safe with everything that's going on in the nation and the world right now with that pandemic continuing, but it's nice to see that racing is moving forward pretty darn well through it all. Folks, if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Hit that little red button for us. Give us a like, too, on the video. It does help us out. I want to thank our sponsor, Matt. That's the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. Thanks to them, and thanks to all of you for watching every week. We sure do appreciate it. Matt and I are going to be back next week, of course, talking about the big day at Gulfstream Park, Pegasus World Cup Invitational, Pegasus World Cup Turf. We'll talk about those two big races next week right here on HorseCenter.